I stood in my driveway, staring at the empty spot where my vintage Mustang should have been. My heart dropped right into my stomach, like I'd just missed a step going down the stairs. That car wasn't just some hunk of metal. It was a 1967 Ford Mustang, cherry red, with curves that could make a grown man cry. My late husband, Tom, and I spent years restoring it, polishing every chrome detail, tooting the engine till it purred like a contented cat. It was our thing, our bond, a piece of him I could still touch even after cancer took him 3 years ago. So when I saw that empty patch of gravel, I felt like someone had ripped a hole in my chest. I fumbled for my phone, my hand shaking as I dialed my son, Ethan. He's 28, my only kid, and I've always tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, even when he's made dumb choices. Ethan, where's my car? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a long pause, the kind that tells you bad news is coming. Mom, I sold it, he said, like he was telling me he'd eaten the last slice of pizza. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the porch railing to keep from falling. Sold it? I said, my voice cracking. To who? Why didn't you ask me? He sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. Look, Mom, Leela needed a break. We're planning a trip to the Bahamas, and the car money covered it. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That car was worth $50,000, maybe more. But it wasn't about the money. It was Tom's dream, our dream. And Ethan had just pawned it off like it was nothing. I asked who bought it, but he mumbled something about a guy on Craigslist and hung up. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, the dialed tone mocking me. My own son had betrayed me. And for what? A vacation with his girlfriend Leela, who I'd never quite warmed to? My blood was boiling, but a spark lit deep inside me. Ethan didn't know who he was messing with. Not yet. I threw on my jacket and drove my old Toyota sedan across town. The whole way, memories of that Mustang flooded my mind. Tom and I used to take it to car shows, him grinning ear to ear as folks admired the glossy paint and leather seats we'd hand-stitched ourselves. Ethan was just a kid then, climbing into the back seat, pretending to drive, his little hands gripping the wheel. How could he do this? I pulled into his complex, a fancy new building with a doorman who barely glanced at me. Leela answered the door, her blonde hair perfect, wearing a designer dress that screamed, money. Money I knew Ethan didn't have. Oh, I'm Mrs. Carter, she said, her smile all teeth, like a shark sizing me up. Ethan's out. Where's my car, Leela? I said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. The place was a mess of luxury, marble countertops, a massive TV, and a stack of brochures for tropical resorts on the coffee table. She shrugged, flipping her hair. Ethan sold it. We needed the cash for our trip. It's just a car, right? You've got that old Toyota. Her words hit like a slap. Just a car? I saw red, but I kept my cool, spotting a receipt on the counter. $50,000 deposited into Ethan's account at First Trust Bank, my bank. Leela kept talking, something about needing to de-stress in the Bahamas, but I was already halfway out the door, my mind racing. They thought I was just some grieving widow with no say in this. Oh, they were so wrong. See, here's the thing Ethan and Leela didn't know. I'm not just some retired bank teller living off a pension. I own First Trust Bank. Yeah, you heard that right. After Tom died, I took the life insurance money and years of savings and bought controlling shares in the bank I'd worked at for 30 years. I kept it quiet, didn't want the attention, so my name's buried in paperwork nobody bothers to read. To Ethan, I'm just Mom, the lady who nags him to call more often. But to the bank's board, I'm Eleanor Carter, chairman, the one who calls the shots. And Ethan just deposited his dirty money into my bank. The next morning, I walked into First Trust's main branch downtown. The teller smiled, calling me Mrs. Carter, like always. I nodded back, heading straight to my office on the top floor. It's not fancy, just a desk, a computer, and a view of the city, but it's where I run things. I pulled up Ethan's account on my screen. Sure enough, there it was, $50,000 deposited yesterday, with pending withdrawals for plane tickets and a five-star resort. I leaned back in my chair, a smile creeping across my face. This was almost too easy. I called my head of operations, Karen, a sharp woman who's been with me for years. I said, "Flag Ethan's account for suspicious activity. Freeze all transactions until I say otherwise." Karen didn't blink. She knew better than to ask questions when I used that tone. By evening, my phone was blowing up. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, and when I answered, he was practically yelling, "Mom, what the hell? The bank froze my account. They're saying I need to come in for a fraud check? Did you do something?" I played dumb, my voice all sugar. "Oh, honey, that's awful. Why don't you and Leela come to the bank tomorrow? I'll help you sort it out." He grumbled, but agreed, probably thinking I'd just pull some strings as a former employee. I hung up, my heart pounding, not with fear, but with something else. Anticipation. For the first time since Tom died, I felt alive, like I was back in control. The next day, Ethan and Leela showed up at the bank, looking like they just rolled out of a magazine shoot. Ethan was in a tailored jacket, Leela in heels that clicked on the marble floor. I met them in the lobby, wearing my usual cardigan and plants, letting them think I was just there to help. "This way," I said, leading them to the boardroom. The room was all dark wood and leather chairs, with a plaque on the wall, Eleanor Carter, Chairman. Leela's eyes flicked to it, then away, like she didn't quite register. Ethan just looked annoyed. "So, what's the deal, Mom? Can you fix this or not?" I sat at the head of the table, folding my hands. "Ethan, why don't you tell me again why you sold my car?" He shifted, uncomfortable, and muttered about the trip, how Leela deserved it, how I didn't need the Mustang anymore. Leela chimed in, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "We just thought you'd moved on, Mrs. Carter. It's been years since Tom passed." That was it, the final straw. I stood, walking to the plaque, letting them see it clearly. "You thought wrong. And you didn't just sell my car, you stole it. From me, Eleanor Carter, Chairman of First Trust Bank." Leela's jaw hit the floor. Ethan's face went white like he'd seen a ghost. You own the bank?" he stammered. I nodded, letting the weight of it sink in. "Every penny you deposited, every withdrawal you tried to make, it all goes through me, and I'm not letting you spend my husband's legacy on your girlfriend's beach selfies." Leela tried to speak, but I held up a hand. "Save it. You're lucky I haven't pressed charges for theft." I slid a folder across the table, a loan agreement for $50,000 with interest to be repaid to me personally. "Sign it, or I'll make sure the police know exactly what you did." Ethan's hands shook as he signed, Leela staring at the floor like she could disappear into it. I wasn't done, though. I'd already called a contact at a classic car dealership. The buyer, some collector who jumped at the Mustang, had agreed to sell it back to me for a small fee. By the time Ethan and Leela left, tails between their legs, my car was on its way home. I transferred the $50,000 to a trust for my future grandchildren, not Ethan. He'd have to earn his own way now. As I drove home that night, the Mustang waiting in my driveway, I felt Tom's presence beside me. The car wasn't just a car. It was us, our love, our fight. And no one, not even my own son, was going to take that from me. I'd spent years building my empire in the shadows, and now Ethan knew, mess with me, and you'll lose everything. I drove away from Ethan's apartment, my old Toyota sedan rattling like it was as mad as I was. The nerve of Lila. standing there in her fancy dress, acting like my Mustang, Tom's Mustang, was just some old junker she could pawn off for a beach vacation. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. That car wasn't just a car. It was late nights in the garage with Tom, laughing over greasy rags and warm beer, the radio playing Johnny Cash while we sanded down rust spots. It was Ethan, barely 5, sitting in the driver's seat, making vroom vroom noises while Tom pretended to be his co-pilot. And now it was gone, sold for $50,000 to fund Lila's de-stress trip to the Bahamas. I wanted to scream, but instead I let the anger settle into something sharper. Resolve. Lila thought she could play me. Ethan thought he could just shrug this off. They had no idea what I was capable of. I pulled into a gas station to clear my head, the neon lights buzzing overhead. My phone pinged, a text from Ethan. "Mom, I'm sorry, okay? Lila said it'd be fine. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Sorry? That word didn't fix a damn thing. I shoved the phone back in my purse and drove home, the empty spot in my driveway glaring at me like an accusation. Inside, I poured a glass of iced tea and sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Tom and I used to plan our future. The stack of resort brochures I'd seen at Ethan's place flashed in my mind. Glossy pictures of palm trees, infinity pools, and cocktails with little umbrellas. Lila's dream vacation, paid for with my memories. I needed to know more about her plan, and I wasn't about to wait for Ethan to fess up. The next morning, I woke up with a fire in my belly. I threw on my favorite navy blazer, the one I used to wear to board meetings at First Trust Bank before I started working from the shadows. I wasn't just Eleanor Carter, grieving widow. I was the woman who'd turned a small-town bank into a regional powerhouse, and I didn't get there by letting people walk all over me. I drove to Ethan's apartment again, but this time I wasn't there to argue. I wanted answers. When I knocked, Lila opened the door, her hair in a messy bun, wearing yoga pants and a crop top like she was auditioning for a fitness ad. "Mrs. Carter," she said, her voice all fake surprise. "Didn't expect you back so soon." "I bet you didn't," I said, stepping inside. The place looked even more like a showroom now. New furniture, a fancy espresso machine, and those damn brochures still on the counter. "Where's Ethan?" She shrugged, pouring herself a coffee. "Work. He's been stressed, with the trip planning and all." I bit back a laugh. "Stressed? He sold my car without a word, and he's stressed?" I pointed to the brochures. "This your idea? Selling my Mustang for a week of pina coladas?" Her eyes narrowed, but she kept that sugary smile. "Ethan said you wouldn't mind. It's just a car, and we needed the money. You're retired, right? You don't need it." Her words were like gasoline on a fire. I leaned in, keeping my voice low but sharp. That car was my husband's legacy. You don't get to decide what I need. Lila's smile faltered, but she doubled down. "Look, Ethan made the call. He said you're too attached to old stuff. We're young. We've got plans. You wouldn't understand." Oh, I understood plenty. Lila wasn't just some gold digger. She was calculating, playing Ethan like a fiddle to get what she wanted. I spotted a laptop open on the counter, a travel itinerary on the screen, first-class flights, a private villa, spa treatments, all booked through Ethan's account at First Trust, my bank. I turned to leave, but not before grabbing one of the brochures. "We'll talk soon, Lila." I let her hear the edge in my voice. Back in my car, I unfolded the brochure. It was for a resort called Paradise Cove, the kind of place where a single night costs more than my monthly mortgage. The total for their trip was itemized on the laptop screen I'd glimpsed. $45,000, with the rest of the $50,000 from the car sale probably going to Lila's wardrobe. I felt sick, but not defeated. If Lila thought she could spend my money and toss me aside, she was about to learn a hard lesson. I drove straight to First Trust, my mind already spinning a plan. The bank was my domain, my fortress, and Ethan had just handed me the key to his downfall by depositing that money into my system. Walking into First Trust always felt like coming home. The marble floors, the hum of tellers helping customers, the quiet power of it all. It was mine. It started as a teller 30 years ago, back when Tom and I were scraping by. I worked my way up, learned every inch of the business, and when Tom passed, I used his life insurance to buy controlling shares. Nobody outside the board knew, not even Ethan. To him, I was just Mom, the lady who sent him care packages in college. I headed to my office, nodding at the staff who greeted me with, "Morning, Mrs. Carter." My assistant, Karen, was waiting with a cup of coffee and a knowing look. "Trouble?" I handed her the brochure. "My son sold my Mustang to fund this. I need everything you can get on his account, every transaction, every withdrawal." Karen didn't flinch. She'd seen me handle crises before, from loan defaults to hostile takeovers. Within an hour, she had a report on my desk. Ethan's account showed the $50,000 deposit from the car sale, plus a string of pending charges, $10,000 for flights, $25,000 for the villa, and smaller amounts for spa packages and dining reservations. Lila's name was all over the bookings, linked to a credit card in Ethan's name. I leaned back, tapping my pen on the desk. "Karen, flag this account for suspicious activity. Freeze everything. No withdrawals, no transfers, nothing." She nodded, her fingers already flying across her keyboard. "Done. Anything else?" I smiled. "Get me the name of the buyer who took my Mustang. I want it back." That evening, Ethan called again, his voice a mix of panic and irritation. "Mom, the bank's saying my account's frozen. Lila's freaking out. She can't book the rest of the trip. What's going on?" I kept my tone calm, like I was soothing a toddler. "Oh, honey, that sounds awful. Probably just a mix-up. Why don't you and Lila come to the bank tomorrow? I'll see what I can do." He muttered something about how inconvenient it was, but he agreed. I hung up, picturing Lila's smug face when she realized her little scheme was crumbling. She thought she could manipulate my son, spend my money, and disrespect my husband's memory. But I wasn't just a mom with a broken heart. I was a woman with power, and I was done playing nice. That evening, I got a call from my car guy, Jimmy, who runs a classic car dealership outside town. He tracked down the buyer, a collector named Vince, who'd bought the Mustang through a shady Craigslist ad. "Good news, Ellie," Jimmy said. "Vince is willing to sell it back for $55,000. Says he didn't know it was stolen." Stolen. The word hit hard, but it was true. Ethan hadn't just sold my car. He'd stolen it, legally speaking. I told Jimmy to make the deal and keep the car safe until I could pick it up. Step 1 was in motion. Now it was time to deal with Ethan and Lila. They showed up at the bank at noon, looking like they'd stepped out of a fashion catalog. Ethan was in a sharp blazer, Lila in tight dress and heels that echoed through the lobby. I met them at the entrance, still in my plain blazer and plants, letting them think I was just some retired clerk trying to help. "This way," I said, leading them to a conference room. Not the boardroom yet, not time for the big reveal. I wanted to see how deep this hole went first. Ethan slumped into a chair, rubbing his temples. "Mom, this is a nightmare. The resort's threatening to cancel our reservations if we don't pay by tonight." Lila crossed her arms, glaring at me like I was the problem. "Can you just fix it? Ethan said you were worked it here." I sat across from them, folding my hands. "Tell me about the car, Ethan. Why didn't you ask me?" He shifted, looking at Lila like she had the script. She jumped in, her voice all honey. "Mrs. Carter, we didn't think you'd care. Ethan said you never drive it anymore. We needed the money, and it was just there." I raised an eyebrow. "Just there? That car was my husband's. You know what it meant to us." Ethan finally spoke, his voice low. "Lila said it'd be okay. She said you'd get over it." There it was. Lila pulling the strings, Ethan too weak to push back. I leaned in. "And you believed her? Over me?" Lila's face hardened, but she didn't back down. "Look, Ethan's a grown man. He made the choice. We're building a life together, and that car was just old. Baggage." "Old baggage?" I wanted to slap that smug look off her face, but I kept my cool. "We'll see about that," I said, standing. "Let's move to another room. I need to check something." I led them to the boardroom, where the plaque on the wall read, "Eleanor Carter, Chairman." Lila's eyes flicked to it, but she didn't say anything. Ethan just looked confused. I sat at the head of the table, letting the silence stretch. Ethan, you deposited the money from my car into this bank. My bank. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? His face went pale. Lila's mouth opened, then closed, like a fish out of water. Your bank? Ethan said, his voice barely a whisper. I nodded, pointing to the plaque. I don't just work here, son. I own First Trust. Every dollar you spent, every booking Lila made, it all runs through me. I slid a folder across the table, a legal document outlining the theft of the Mustang with a demand for repayment of the $50,000 plus interest. Sign this, I said, or I'll have the police at your door by tonight. His hand shook as he picked up the pen, his eyes darting to Lila, who was staring at the floor. I wasn't done. I'd already arranged for the Mustang to be back in my driveway by tomorrow, and the $50,000 was being moved to a trust for my future grandkids. Kids Ethan might never have if he kept letting Lila run his life. As they left, heads down, I felt a weight lift. This wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about showing them who I really was, a woman who'd built a legacy and who'd fight to protect it, no matter who stood in my way. I watched Ethan and Lila slink out of the boardroom, their fancy clothes and smug attitudes deflated like a popped balloon. The look on Lila's face when she saw my name on that plaque, Eleanor Carter, chairman, was worth every sleepless night since I found my Mustang gone. Ethan's eyes, wide with shock, kept darting between me and the door, like he was hoping for an escape hatch to magically appear. But there was no escaping this. They tried to play me, thinking I was just some lonely widow clinging to a rusty old car. They didn't know I'd built an empire, and that empire was about to bite back. Driving home, the weight of what I'd just done settled over me. I'd frozen my own son's bank account, called him out in front of his girlfriend, and slapped them with a legal document that could ruin them. Part of me felt like a monster. Ethan was my kid, the boy I'd raised, the one I'd bandaged up after bike crashes and cheered for at soccer games. But another part, the part that remembered Tom's laugh as we waxed the Mustang together, felt righteous. That car wasn't just metal and chrome. It was our love, our sweat, our dreams. And Ethan had sold it for Lila's Instagram-worthy vacation. I pulled into my driveway, the empty spot where the Mustang belonged glaring at me under the streetlights. I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The next morning, I woke up early, the kind of early where the world's still quiet and the coffee tastes like determination. I put on my sharpest outfit, a tailored gray suit I hadn't worn since my last board meeting, and headed to First Trust Bank. The bank was my sanctuary, my battlefield. I started there as a teller at 22, back when Tom and I were living paycheck to paycheck in a one-bedroom apartment. Over 3 decades, I'd climbed the ranks, learned every trick in the book, and when Tom passed, I used his life insurance money to buy controlling shares. I kept my ownership quiet, letting the board handle the public face while I pulled the strings from behind. Ethan never knew. To him, I was just Mom, the lady who nagged him to mow the lawn. But today, I was Eleanor Carter, chairman, and I was about to remind everyone what that meant. I walked into the bank, the familiar hum of the lobby greeting me. Tellers smiled, customers shuffled through lines, and the air smelt faintly of polished wood and fresh coffee. My assistant, Karen, was waiting in my office with a stack of files and a knowing grin. "You look like you're ready to take down a small country," she said, handing me a mug. I laughed, but it was a tight sound. "Just my son's bad decisions," I replied, sitting at my desk. I pulled up Ethan's account on my computer. The $50,000 from the Mustang sale sat there, frozen, with a long list of pending charges. $10,000 for first-class flights, $25,000 for a private villa at Paradise Cove, and a bunch of smaller ones for spa treatments and dining packages. Lila's name was all over the bookings tied to Ethan's credit card. I shook my head. She'd played him like a cheap fiddle and he let her. Karen, I said, I need a full audit of Ethan's account. Every transaction, every link to Lila, and dig into her financials too, anything public we can access. Karen raised her eyebrow but didn't question me. She'd seen me go after bigger fish than this. Crooked loan officers, shady investors. A 25-year-old with a taste for luxury didn't scare me. Also, I added, get me the details on that car buyer. I want my Mustang back by the end of the week. Karen nodded, already typing. On it, Allie. You sure you want to go this hard on your own kid? I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He stopped being my kid when he sold my Tom's car without asking. By noon, Karen had a preliminary report. Lila wasn't just a gold digger, she was a planner. Her credit report showed a string of maxed-out cards all in her name, with Ethan co-signing on 2 of them. She'd been living way beyond her means, racking up debt for designer bags and high-end salon visits while Ethan picked up the tab. The $50,000 from the Mustang was just the latest in her scheme to keep the party going. I felt a pang of pity for Ethan. He was in love, or thought he was, and Lila had him wrapped around his finger. But pity didn't erase the trail. I called Jimmy, my contact at the classic car dealership, to check on the Mustang. He said, good news. Vince, the buyer, is ready to sell it back for $55,000. He's a collector. Didn't know it was stolen. I'll have it delivered to your place tomorrow. I thanked him, relief washing over me. Step 1, secure the car. Step 2, make sure Ethan and Lila never pull this stunt again. That afternoon, I got a text from Ethan. Mom, Lila's losing it. The resort canceled our booking because the payment didn't go through. Can you please fix this? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Fix it? He still didn't get it. I typed back, come to the bank tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring Lila. We'll talk. I could have unfrozen the account right then, let them have their stupid trip, but that would have been too easy. They needed to learn, and I was going to be the one to teach them. The rest of the day, I dug deeper. Karen's team pulled records showing Lila had been emailing a travel agent, pushing for upgrades on their trip, private cabanas, champagne dinners, even a yacht rental, all on Ethan's dim, all tied to the money from my car. I found an email chain where Lila told the agent, don't worry about the budget. Ethan's mom won't miss the car. My blood boiled. She didn't just disrespect me. She planned this, knowing exactly what that Mustang meant. I printed the emails, adding them to the folder I'd started for the confrontation. If Lila wanted a fight, she was about to get one. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Tom's face, the way he'd grin when we took the Mustang out for a Sunday drive, the wind whipping through our hair as we cruised down back roads. Ethan used to beg to come along, his little legs kicking in the back seat. Where had that boy gone? The one who'd cry when Tom tucked him in, promising to take him to car shows when he was older. I poured a glass of wine and sat on my porch staring at the empty driveway. I wasn't just fighting for the car. I was fighting for what was left of my family. Ethan had chosen Lila over me, but I wasn't going to let her win. The next morning, I was back at the bank before the doors opened. Karen had more dirt on Lila. A social media profile full of posts about living her best life with pictures of her in designer outfits sipping cocktails at rooftop bars. One post, from just a week ago, showed her posing in front of a red sports car, not my Mustang, but close enough to twist the knife. The caption read, "Big things coming, #new money." I clenched my jaw. She was flaunting it, like stealing from me was some kind of victory. I added the screenshots to my folder, along with the note from Jimmy confirming the Mustang's return. Everything was falling into place. At 10 a.m. sharp, Ethan and Lila walked into the bank. Ethan looked like he hadn't slept, his hair messy and his eyes red. But Lila was all polished perfection. Red lipstick, tight dress, heels clicking like she owned the place. I met them in the lobby, keeping my face neutral. "Thanks for coming," I said, leading them to a small meeting room. Not the boardroom yet. I was saving that for the knockout punch. Ethan slumped into a chair, rubbing his face. "Mom, this is a mess. The resort's threatening to sue us for the canceled booking. Can you just unfreeze the account?" Lila crossed her arms, glaring at me. "Yeah, Mrs. Carter, this is getting ridiculous. It's just money." I sat down, folding my hands. "Just money? Ethan, tell me again why you sold my car." He shifted, glancing at Lila like she'd feed him the answer. She jumped in, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Mrs. Carter, we didn't think it was a big deal. Ethan said you're, like, super sentimental, but the car was just sitting there. We needed it for something real." Real? I wanted to laugh. "That car was my husband's," I said, my voice steady but sharp. "You knew that, Lila. I saw your emails to the travel agent. Ethan's mom won't miss the car." Sound familiar? Lila's face went red, but she didn't deny it. Ethan's head snapped up. "You said what?" he asked her, his voice cracking. She shrugged, tossing her hair. "I was joking, babe. God, relax." I slid the folder across the table, open to the email printouts. "Doesn't look like a joke to me." Ethan grabbed the papers, his eyes scanning the words. For the first time, I saw something like doubt in his face. Ethan, you told me Mom was okay with it," he said, his voice low. She rolled her eyes. "She's blowing this out of proportion. It's a car, Ethan." I stood, walking to the door. "Let's finish this in the boardroom," I said, not waiting for a response. They followed, Ethan dragging his feet, Lila strutting like she still had the upper hand. When we stepped into the boardroom, I let them see the plaque on the wall. Eleanor Carter, Chairman. Lila's eyes flicked to it, and this time she froze. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I sat at the head of the table, the folder in front of me. "You thought you could sell my car, spend my money, and walk away," I said. "But this is my bank. I own it. And you just played your little game in my house." Lila tried to laugh, but it came out weak. "You're not serious. You're like a secretary or something, right?" I smiled, cold and sharp. "No, Lila. I'm the chairman. Every transaction you made, every dollar you spent, it all goes through me. And I'm done letting you disrespect my family." I opened the folder, pulling out the loan agreement. "Ethan, you're signing this. You owe me $50,000 plus interest for stealing my car, or I press charges." His hands shook as he took the pen, his eyes darting to Lila, who was staring at the floor like it might swallow her whole. I wasn't done. I had already arranged for the Mustang to be back in my driveway by tonight, and the $50,000 was being transferred to a trust for my future grandkids. Kids Ethan might never have if he kept following Lila's lead. As they left, heads down, I felt Tom's presence, like he was nodding in approval. This wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about protecting what we'd built, what I'd built. And nobody, not my son, not his girlfriend, was going to take that from me. I stood at the head of the boardroom table, the polished mahogany reflecting the overhead lights like a mirror. The plaque on the wall, Eleanor Carter, Chairman, seemed to loom over Ethan and Lila as they sat across from me, their faces a mix of shock and defiance. Ethan's hands fidgeted with the pen I'd handed him, the loan agreement open in front of him. Lila's red lipstick was still perfect, but her eyes betrayed her. She knew she was in over her head. The air in the room felt thick, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. I'd just dropped the bomb. I wasn't just some meddling mom. I was the owner of First Trust Bank, and they'd tried to pull their little stunt on my turf. Now it was time for them to face the consequences. "Ethan," I said, my voice steady but sharp enough to cut through the silence, "you sold my Mustang, your father's Mustang, without so much as a text. You let Lila convince you it was okay to steal from me. So tell me, why should I let this slide?" His mouth opened, then closed, like he was a fish gasping for air. He glanced at Leela, like she'd bail him out, but she was staring at the cable, her manicured nails digging into her palms. "Mom," he finally muttered, "I didn't think it was stealing. Leela said you didn't need the car anymore, that you were, holding on to the past." Leela's head snapped up, her eyes flashing. "Don't put this on me, Ethan. You're the one who said your mom wouldn't care." Her voice was shrill, like she was trying to claw her way out of the hole she dug. I leaned back in my chair, letting them turn on each other. It was almost too easy. "So, Leela," I said, sliding the folder of evidence across the table, "you didn't tell Ethan to sell the car? You didn't email the travel agent saying, 'Ethan's mom won't miss it'? Because I've got the receipts." I tapped the folder, where I'd printed her emails, her social media posts, and the transaction records tying her to every cent of that $50,000. Her face went red, but she didn't back down. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Mrs. Carter. It's just a car. Ethan made the call. I just helped with the plans." Helped. I wanted to laugh, but the ache in my chest stopped me. This wasn't just about the car. It was about my son, my only kid, choosing this woman over his own family. I looked at Ethan, his shoulders slumped, his eyes fixed on the loan agreement like it was a death sentence. "Ethan," I said, softer now, "you're my son. I raised you to know right from wrong. How did you let this happen?" He swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was doing something good for Leela. She's been stressed, Mom. Her job's tough, and I wanted to make her happy. I didn't think you'd be this mad." My heart twisted. He was still my boy, still the kid who'd cry when I left for work, that he'd let Leela manipulate him into betraying me. I turned to Leela, my voice cold. "And you, Leela? You saw a grieving widow's car and thought, 'Easy money.' You didn't just take my Mustang. You took a piece of my husband's memory, and you thought I'd just let it go." Leela's bravado cracked, her lips trembling. "I didn't know it was that important." But her eyes darted away, and I knew she was lying. She knew exactly what she was doing. I opened the folder, pulling out a screenshot of her Instagram post from last week, her posing in front of a red sports car, captioned, "Big things coming. #new money." "This look familiar?" I asked, sliding it toward her. Ethan grabbed it, his face darkening. "Leela, what the hell? You said you were just joking about the car." She shrugged, tossing her hair. "It was just a post, Ethan. God, you're both so dramatic." I'd had enough. I stood walking to the window overlooking the city. First Trust Bank's logo glowed on the building across the street, a reminder of everything I'd built. 30 years ago, I was a teller, counting pennies to keep the lights on while Tom worked construction. We dreamed big, saved every dime, and when he got sick, I poured my heart into this bank to keep his memory alive. After he died, I used his life insurance to buy controlling shares, turning First Trust into a powerhouse. Ethan never knew. He was away at college, then chasing his own life. To him, I was just Mom, the lady who sent him birthday cards with $20 tucked inside. But now, standing in this boardroom, I was done hiding who I was. I turned back to them, my voice like steel. "Here's how this is going to work. Ethan, you're signing that loan agreement. You owe me $50,000 plus interest for stealing my car. If you don't, I'll file charges, and you'll be explaining this to a judge." His hands Ethan widened, his eye stealing to Leela, who was staring at the table. He not done picking up the pen. Leela grabbed his arm. "Ethan, don't sign that. She's bluffing. She's your mom. She's not going to send you to jail." I smiled, cold and sharp. "Try me, Leela. I've taken down bigger sharks than you. Ask the board about the last CEO who tried to cross me." Ethan hesitated, his pen hovering over the paper. I could see the war in his eyes, royalty to Leela versus fear of what I'd do next. I softened my tone just a little. "Ethan, I don't want to hurt you, but you made a choice, and choices have consequences. Sign the paper, and we can move forward. Or don't, and you'll see what happens when you steal from Eleanor Carter, chairman of First Trust Bank." He swallowed, his hand shaking as he scrawled his signature. Leela's face twisted like she'd bitten into something sour, but she didn't say a word. I wasn't done. I slid another document across the table. A notice transferring the $50,000 from Ethan's account to a trust I'd set up for my future grandkids. This money's not yours anymore. It's for your kids if you ever have any. And it's out of your reach. Leela's jaw dropped. You can't do that! That's our money! I raised an eyebrow. Your money? You mean the money from my stolen car? Try again. Ethan looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. Mom, I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't mean for this to happen. I wanted to believe him, but the sting of his betrayal was still raw. I said, sorry doesn't bring back what you took, but I've already got that covered. My phone buzzed. A text from Jimmy, my car guy. The Mustang was back in my driveway, safe and sound, after he'd paid the buyer $55,000 to return it. I'd covered the cost myself, a small price to keep Tom's memory alive. I didn't tell Ethan or Leela that, though. Let them sweat, thinking the car was still out there, out of reach. I stood, signaling the end of the meeting. You're free to go, I said, but Ethan, you're on a repayment plan now. And Leela, if you ever try to pull something like this again, you'll find out just how far my reach goes. They shuffled out, Leela's heels clicking softer now, like she'd lost her swagger. Ethan didn't look back. I sat back down, the folder still open in front of me. The room was quiet, but my mind was racing. This wasn't over. Not yet. Leela was too cunning to give up, and Ethan was too weak to stand up to her. I needed to stay one step ahead. That night, I drove home, the Mustang waiting in my driveway like an old friend. I ran my hand over the hood, feeling Tom's presence in the cool metal. We're okay now, I whispered, my voice catching. But as I walked inside, my phone pinged again. A new email from Karen. She'd dug deeper into Leela's financials and found something I hadn't expected. A second bank account, in Leela's name, with transfers from Ethan's account that predated the car sale. She'd been siphoning money from him for months. I sat at my kitchen table, the same one that Tom and I used to plan our future, and started reading. Leela wasn't just a gold digger, she was a thief, and Ethan was her mark. Tomorrow, I'd deal with her. For now, I had my car, my power, and my plan, and nobody was going to take that from me again. As Ethan and Leela slunk out of the boardroom, the heavy oak door clicking shut behind them, I stood there, heart pounding, the weight of what I'd just done settling like a stone in my gut. I'd laid it all bare. I wasn't just Ethan's mom, the lady who baked him cookies and nagged him to call. I was Eleanor Carter, chairman of First Trust Bank, the woman who held their financial fate in her hands. Ethan's shaky signature on the loan agreement, $50,000 plus interest, for stealing my Mustang, stared up at me from the polished mahogany table. Leela's face, flushed with fury and humiliation, flashed in my mind as she tried to laugh off my title, only to choke on her own words when she saw the plaque, Eleanor Carter, chairman. They thought they could play me, sell my husband's legacy for a beach getaway, and walk away. They were wrong, and now they knew it. But as the silence of the boardroom wrapped around me, a hollow ache gnawed at my chest. Ethan was still my son, and this wasn't over. Not yet. I sat back down, the folder of evidence open in front of me. Leela's emails to the travel agent, her Instagram posts gloating about new money, the bank records showing she'd been siphoning cash from Ethan for months. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was Karen, my assistant, her text short and sharp. Found more on Leela. It's bad. Call me. My stomach twisted. I'd known Leela was a schemer, but Karen's tone told me this went deeper than I thought. I dialed her, my fingers tapping the table. What have you got? I asked, skipping the small talk. Karen's voice was all business, with an edge of worry. Leela's got a second account at River City Bank. She's been pulling money from Ethan's account for over a year, $22,000 total, small transfers to hide it, and she opened a credit card in his name without his knowledge. Ellie, this is fraud, plain and simple. Fraud. The word hit like a punch to the chest. Leela wasn't just manipulating my son. She was stealing from him, using his love to bankroll her designer life. "I send me everything," I said, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling inside. "And get Diane and the legal team ready for a meeting tomorrow morning. I want every option on the table." Karen didn't miss a beat. "Already done. You want Ethan's full financial history too. There might be more surprises." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Pull it all. I need to know how bad this is." I hung up, staring out the boardroom window at the city skyline, the First Trust logo glowing across the street like a beacon. This bank was my empire, built from 30 years of sweat, sacrifice, and sheer stubbornness. I started as a teller, counting pennies while Tom worked construction to keep us afloat. After he died, I used his life insurance to buy controlling shares, keeping my name off the public records to avoid the spotlight. Ethan never knew, but now that secret was my power. I drove home, the Mustang waiting in my driveway like a piece of my heart returned. Jimmy, my car guy, had delivered $55,000 to buy it back from the collector who'd snapped it up from Ethan's shady Craigslist deal. I ran my hand over the cherry red hood, the paint cool and smooth under my fingers. "We're home, Tom," I whispered, my throat tight. That car was late nights in the garage, Tom's laugh mixing with the hum of the radio, Ethan's little voice shouting, "Vroom, vroom," from the back seat. Now it was back, but the cost wasn't just the $55,000. It was the rift with my son, the boy I raised, who'd let Leela twist him into someone I barely recognized. Inside, I poured a glass of wine and opened Karen's email. The file was a gut punch. Leela's secret account showed transfers from Ethan going back 14 months, $200 here, $500 there, disguised as gifts or shared expenses. Then the big ones. $5,000 for a designer purse, $3,000 for a spa weekend, $10,000 for a deposit on a leased BMW. My boy, who used to draw me pictures of the Mustang, was his personal ATM. I felt sick, but the anger kept me focused. Leela thought she could bleed my son dry and walk away, not on my watch. The next morning, I was at First Trust before the sun rose, my gray suit pressed and my mind sharp. Diane, my lead attorney, met me in the conference room with the legal team, their faces grim as they pored over Karen's report. "This is airtight," she said, tapping the file. "Leela's transfers are textbook fraud, especially the credit card. We can file a civil suit to recover the funds, and there's enough here for the DA to consider criminal charges. The car theft is covered by Ethan's loan agreement, but we could still press charges if you want to make a point." I leaned back, considering. "I want Leela held accountable," I said. "But Ethan's my son, and I need to give him a chance to fix this." Diane nodded. "The trust for the $50,000 is locked down. Neither of them can touch it. For Ethan, the repayment plan keeps him accountable without breaking him. For Leela, we can start with a demand letter, escalate if she pushes back." I spent the day with the team, mapping out the next steps. We sent a fraud alert to River City Bank, freezing Leela's account and cutting off her access to the stolen funds. Karen pulled Ethan's full financial history. $15,000 in credit card debt tied to Leela's spending, plus a car loan he couldn't afford. My heart ached for him, but he made his choices. I called Jimmy to confirm the Mustang was secure. "It's safe in your driveway, Ellie," Jimmy said. Vince didn't want any trouble. I thanked him, relief mixing with resolve. The car was back, but Leela was still out there, and Ethan was still caught in her mess. That evening, Ethan called, his voice raw and broken. "Mom, Leela's gone. She packed a bag and left after the bank meeting. She's saying I ruined her life. I could hear the pain in his words, and it tore at me, but I kept my tone firm. Ethan, come to the house tomorrow morning, just you. We need to talk. He hesitated, then whispered, okay. I hung up, wondering if I could still reach the boy who used to run to me when he scraped his knee, or if Leela had broken him too badly. The next morning, I woke early, the Mustang gleaming in the driveway as the sun came up. I made coffee and set out 2 mugs on the kitchen table, the same table where Tom and I used to plan our future, where Ethan used to do his homework. The folder of evidence sat beside the mugs, a reminder of what we were up against. When Ethan arrived, he looked like he hadn't slept in days, hair messy, eyes red, wearing the same wrinkled shirt from yesterday. I let him in, gesturing to the table. Sit, I said, pouring him coffee. He slumped into a chair, staring at the mug like it might bite him. Mom, I'm so sorry, he said, his voice cracking. I didn't know Leela was. I thought she loved me. I sat across from him, my heart aching, but my resolve steady. Ethan, you sold your father's car. You let Leela convince you it was okay to steal from me. Why? He buried his face in his hands, shoulders shaking. She kept saying we needed to live a little, that you had plenty of money, that the car was just sitting there. I wanted to make her happy, Mom. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. His words stung, but I kept my composure. It wasn't just the car, I said, sliding the folder toward him. Leela's been stealing from you for months. Look. He opened it, his eyes scanning the bank statements, the credit card charges, the emails. His face crumbled as the truth hit. She used me, and I let her. I reached across the table, touching his hand. You made a mistake, Ethan, but I'm your son, and I'm not giving up on you. But you need to make this right. I pulled out the loan agreement, already signed, and a new document, a repayment plan with monthly payments he can handle. You're paying back the $50,000, not because I need it, but because you need to learn. And Leela is done. He nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. She's gone, Mom. I told her to leave last night. I don't want her back. I believed him, his voice raw with regret. I stood, gesturing to the window where the Mustang sat. It's back. Cost me $55,000, but it's home. Your father's legacy is safe. Ethan looked out, his breath catching. I'm so sorry, he whispered. And for the first time, I felt like I had my son back.